When we come into this world, we come in with a sense of awe and wonder, believing that things will work out for the best, filled with excitement. We play like children and we enjoy our lives. But as we get older, we find out that everything maybe isn't as rosy as we first thought it would be. Live life long enough and you realise that what once seemed like happy families can very quick turn into Dungeons and Dragons. Have you ever experienced anxiety, worry, or maybe even fear on an insane level? I want to let you know right here, right now, that you're not alone. Everything from homelessness, betrayal by my best friend, abandonment from the people that I thought would have my back. In fact, I've experienced so many different situations, to tell you all would take a very, very long time indeed. But the good news is I'm here to tell you that, well, they've left their mark on me. I've come through all of them. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I've got a brand new book. It's called The Battles That We All Face. This book is designed to give you encouragement. It's designed to give you hope. It's designed to teach you, to challenge you, to get you to think a little bit more. The full title is The Battles We All Face, a devotional with a difference. Because I don't want you to just read it from start to finish. I want you to take time over this. I want you to read the first chapter and really process it. This book is designed, if nothing more, as I said, to challenge you, to encourage you, to give you hope, but ultimately to let you know that whatever you're facing, you, my friend, are not alone. I want to encourage you right now to not let fear or the past stop you from living an amazing, amazing life. Each page in this book has one of my art pieces in and has been specifically placed there to give you, the reader, an association to the subject discussed. Please don't delay. You owe it to yourself to start rebuilding your life. Life is not over until you draw your last. Don't delay. Order today. Life is short. You owe it to yourself, as long as you're drawing breath, to stand up and fight for the things that you want in life. And my friend, you've got an ally in me who understands completely what you're going through. Have an awesome day. Click that link below, and I'll see you on the other side.
Welcome to the Mind, Body and Soul Show with artist, author and personal development coach John Morris. Inspiring, motivating and educating you on your journey to find balance in the craziness of day-to-day life. Learn from and listen to a man who has a wealth of life experience, from business to bodybuilding, artist to author, and has learned to deal with his own physical and mental wellness. But that's not all. Each week, John will be joined by guests from around the world and all walks of life, where they too will share their knowledge and expertise. And now, we welcome you to today's episode of the Mind, Body and Soul Show with your host, John Morris.
Okay, folks, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Mind, Body and Soul Show. I am your host, as always, John Morris, and welcome to the show that helps you find balance in the craziness of day-to-day life. Well, folks, I hope you're having a great week wherever you are. I don't know about you, but we've just had a snowstorm that's blizzarded its way on in here and outside as well, and the weather has been absolutely crazy. But today we're tucked up all nice, safe and sound, and I'm really excited to be back with you once again for part two of our really, really special show with our wonderful, wonderful guest. So the person that needs no introduction, if you watched from last week, folks, you'll know her only too well. She's known the world over as CoCo, but she's indeed my friend, the awesome Cosette Leary. Cosette, welcome to
And how are you doing today?
Hello, John. Oh my gosh, I'm doing fabulous and thrilled to be with you and your
Can you
wonderful audience
believe
once
it's
again.
been an entire week since we sat down and we talked? It has just flown by. It's crazy.
It has. I mean, just like, just looked up and, oh, it's Tuesday again. Let's get this
Pretty
party
much.
started, okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's literally the way that the weeks go. It's like Monday comes around again, and we're like, okay, the entire week's now fully packed up and everything. But I'm really excited to be here with you today because last week we, in a lot of ways, skimmed the surface. Even though we talked a lot of stuff that was there, today we're going to go even deeper. And I'm
Mhm.
delighted that you're back here and doing this. Folks, for you guys and girls that didn't see the show last week, I encourage you to go back. You can find it on YouTube, you can find it on Facebook, you can find it all over the place, and watch part one with Cosette and myself. Now, Cosette has survived issues with foster homes and abusive family. She survived being on the poverty line, and she's got herself into a phenomenal position of where she is now through a lot of different things. So it's an amazing story for sure. We had questions, Cosette, that poured in all week long, and it was incredible. And we're going to have people obviously that were watching last week. So guys and girls, if you've got questions that you want to ask, do feel free, and we will try to get them in the show this afternoon for me and this morning for Cosette. But the first thing, Cosette, I suppose in some ways I suppose it's a great way to leave off of from where we did last week. One of the questions that was asked was, what is the process going through your mind? I'm assuming this person means when you're told, Cosette, we have a new family for you to go to. What are you thinking at that point?
I'm thinking, oh no, not again. First of all, I guess I didn't work out with this family that I'm here with at the moment. They didn't like me. And what kind of family am I going to? And how long will I be there at the next family? And am I going to fit in with their biological children if they have biological children? Are the kids going to like me? Or am I just a paycheck? Am I just a paycheck? I always wondered that. I knew they got paid county funded dollars for my room and board. And I wondered, was that the sum of my value, the sum of my life? I really wondered this as a kid. I was like, definitely I'm not loved because I'm a paycheck. So I'm going to go to another home. They're going to act really nice in front of the social workers. Maybe I'll get lucky and maybe they will like me. Maybe they'll keep me. Maybe they'll keep me. Again, nobody's child.
Wow. What was the first night like for you going into these new homes? Because just thinking about it, when you were talking there, it's like whenever somebody goes into a new home, it's half exciting and half okay. I've got to adjust to this. But I know when I moved up here and I started doing youth ministry, I know what that was like going into somebody else's home, somebody else's family. And it was really weird. And I mean, I just sat in my bedroom for a lot of the time because I didn't know. I'd come from a background really where I didn't socialize with a whole lot of other kids.
Mhm.
There wasn't a whole lot of stuff that was going on, with me. It was kind of a weird relationship, with my folks. And so when I moved up to Scotland, it was like I didn't know how to be. I knew how to talk to people, but I didn't know how to be comfortable around another family and to talk to other people. What was that like for you?
Well, I was always extremely curious of what I was going into. I lived in a lot of homes. I can't even count. I don't even know how many. I don't remember, just a lot. And I lived in homes that were both African American homes, and then I lived in homes that were Caucasian families. It just wherever I would get put. And so going into the homes, the first night, The first night I'm looking around at my sleeping area, did I have my own room? Was I sharing a room with one of their own children or another foster child? You know, what was the environment? I would wonder, did they have a dog, cats? What did their furniture look like? I would have all kind of questions in my mind. And in my first night, the main question when I would lay my head on the pillow was always the same question. How long am I going to be here? That was just always the question.
I mean,
That was always the first night.
it's a frightening thing. I remember as a teenager, and I think we talked about this a little bit off air last week, that that there was a lady that went to our church, a wonderful, wonderful lady who I'm still in contact with to this day, and she did, foster. And the kids that she took in, again, they varied in ages. They had all sorts of different backgrounds. And it was really interesting to see the good, side of her, and what she was able to do with kids that, had gone through so many homes. And as a result of going through so many homes, it changed them, as a person. How do you feel, if at all, I suppose, that it changed your personality? Did you find, sides of yourself where all of a sudden, you're really curious and really happy about something, and then all of a sudden you just kind of closed off and you become tougher in your own self? I know we're asking hard
Mm.
questions today.
No, it's great. You know, how did it change me? How was it for me finding my own self? Well, I started really depending on me. That was one thing. I went into the system when I was 12 years old. By the time I was 14, I was carrying my first child. So I started realizing that even though I was a minor, a youth, I was also somebody's mom. And looking at the different households that I was placed in, again, I don't know if we covered this. I think we might have talked about it. I started looking at being emancipated. And I quickly got tired of hoping
Mhm.
that this could be my forever family, that somebody would love me and now love me and my child. So I became a very resilient, strong individual. And I don't want to paint a picture of just gloom and doom. No, because it wasn't just that.
Yeah.
Of course, the transitions were always rather chaotic
Mhm.
and full of uncertainty and all of that. But I would like to touch on the fact that I did have two incredible life experiences within the foster care system. And that's why I said I don't want to just paint gloom and doom. But the first, and I love this story, it's hilarious. It's hilarious to me. It's hilarious. I can't help it. It's hilarious. I had already had my daughter and I was still a ward of the court. I hadn't gotten emancipated yet. And I was forever chasing after her father. I think I talked a little bit about that last time too. And I was like, please take me and the child, love us. And so I had gone back to California. My daughter was born in Washington State in a little town called Longview, Washington in 1988. And so at that time, I was 15 in 1988 and had given birth to this gorgeous little girl and decided that, that's it. I know I'm going to go back to California and me and her dad are going to get together and life is going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I went back to California and I did inherit a wonderful foster mom. I've been looking for her for years. I don't even know if she's still within our dimension because she
Right.
was an older woman, at the time. And we're talking 33 years ago.
Hmm.
And she was easily 54, 55 when she had me living in her home. But her name was Lucinda Carter.
Right.
And this is an impact. The fact that I remember her first and last name, I want to stress that for a minute. That's an impact, a positive impact. I don't just remember, oh, her name was Lucinda, or I think her name was Lucille or Louise or whatever. No, her name was Lucinda Carter. And she opened up her home to me and my daughter. Kayla was about, I want to say, probably close to 6 months old at the time. And she took me and my daughter in. I even remember the name of the street her house was on. Can you believe it was French Road? It was called French Road. And immediately, now this is a good point. Oh, I'm starting to really get round up here. You asked me earlier, what was my first night like in these placements? Well, I will tell you, my first night in Lucinda's home was full of love and hope. She took me and Kayla's bedroom, and it was only me and Kayla's bedroom. And she showed me all the wonderful things. She had a beautiful crib in there for my daughter. She had went out and bought cute little stuffed animals for the crib. And she was just like, this is your room. I had a little TV in my room, a little radio. She was like, I'm so glad you're here in my home with me. I want you and your daughter to feel very comfortable. I want you to know this is a loving home. And I kid you not, that's the first time any foster family had said to me, I want you to know this is a loving home. No one had ever bothered to say that. And I just fell in love with her immediately. I was like, oh my God, this woman is saying this is a loving home. She's got a beautiful crib in here, a nice bed for me, stuffed animals for my little girl, a TV, a radio. Could it be possible that we're okay? So the first night in Lucinda's home, I was happy. I mean, happy. I was safe. My little girl was safe. I began to freely know that I could start to process this thing called Cosette's life. I could start making plans, plans that were adult teen plans. I could have the calmness in this household to hope, to believe that something could be better than all that I've had already. So that first night in her home was a blessing, a huge
That's really
blessing.
wonderful. It really is, and it's an amazing thing when you hear and see something like that, because it's funny in a very different way. Um, but when you find what you've been searching for. And I was doing an interview yesterday, and more or less was saying the same thing, that when you've searched for this thing all of your life and you start to question, does this thing actually exist, or is it just me that feels this way? And then when all of a sudden it does, it's like, wow, this actually does exist, and you can find that peace, and you could find that love, for sure. And where we left off, obviously, last week, talking about the foster system, there was a great question that came in. What advice would you give to somebody who has, or who is working in the foster system, as someone who's gone through it? And then I want to touch a little bit afterwards as someone who has worked within that foster system. So first of all, for you.
Okay, so I remember that question, and I remember saying that I had an answer, and I already did. And you will find with me, my answers usually are stories because they are
That's
chapters
okay.
out of my life. And so, what would I give as counsel to someone? Listen to the youth, to the individual, the young person. Let them know you hear them. Let them know their thoughts, ideas, and their words matter. and let them know that you understand that despite being a part of a system, that they still have the right to own themselves. And let them know that you see their gifts and their talents. Let them know when you think they're funny. Let them know that you recognize their wisdom when they're being serious. I can say that this is the counsel I give because, yes, I have a story. Like I said, there was a funny part to all of this, and this story is still part of that funny part. Because when I got into Lucinda Carter's home, and I was so comfortable and so well welcomed and well loved, I I was so happy. One day she came to me and she told me that she was going to have to go on a week-long trip with her church. They were going to do something. And that she was going to have a friend of hers come and house sit the house. And that she didn't want me to be nervous and all of a sudden see this person walking around the house and I'm not aware that they're house sitting. And I said, okay. And she explained to me now, I'm gone. You know the run of the house. You've been living here long enough. You just keep doing like you always do. No different. She's just here to be safety at night, and stuff like that. Okay. So this individual comes and Lucinda goes off on her week-long trip. And immediately this person begins to dictate what I do in the house. Now, the thing about Lucinda was she never micromanaged me. She was very good at allowing me to cultivate my confidence in the fact that I could trust that she had trust in me. And that carried a long way in her and I relationship. Well, this individual that came to house set all of a sudden was telling me when I could make food for my daughter in the kitchen and how I better clean up the kitchen when I'm done and, all kind of things. And I said to the person, I said, wait a minute. I said, you are not my foster mom. And I've been living in this home and I have a daily routine. And I do not need for you to tell me how to do my routine. My foster mom trusts me. She knows how I am. And she knows I'm a good mom. So I would prefer if you would stop talking to me like this. Oh, well, how dare CoCo have the audacity to try to put me in check. So she starts going off on me, right? I said, oh, okay, wait a minute. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, and keep in mind it was a Saturday. That's a very important point about this story. I said, I'm going to let you know right now, I'm going to tell on you. I'm going to tell Lucinda what you're doing. I said, but since Lucinda is away, I have to wait till she gets back. I said, but I am about to get my daughter and get my stroller, and I'm going to go find my new social worker.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, I had never met my new social worker in person, just talked to her on the phone. And it is a Saturday. I keep emphasizing it's a Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's not a work day. It's not a work week day. It's a Saturday. So the woman insists, oh, no, you're not going nowhere. I said, oh, no, honey, you are not going to keep me captive of in this house. I said, you better move out the way. I said, because if you don't, then you're going to get in even more trouble. So I got my stroller, got my baby, got my diaper bag, made sure she had bottles, little Gerber food and everything, and out the door we went. And I was heated, mad, do you hear me? Pissed off. How dare you come in my foster mom's home and try to create rules that you don't know nothing about? You wait till I get through with you. So I'm walking and I come across a lumberjack warehouse store. And I start going through the parking lot. And I'm yelling at this point for every person in that parking lot to hear me, for store people to hear me, everybody. I was saying, I am a foster child and my foster mom is away on a trip and I am being mistreated in her home. I have a social worker. I want the police department, the fire department, and I want them here as soon as possible, and I want them to get my social worker. Now, of course, I'm in a hardware store parking lot, and they're used to nails and screwdrivers and ladders. I'm talking about get my social worker, the fire department, the police. I need help. Well, of course, people in the parking lot were looking around like, oh my God, what's going on? And everybody, so, managers start coming out from the store and hello, young lady, how can we help you? And I know they're thinking myself, not myself, to themselves. They're like, oh my God, this is such a scene in our store. Customers must be thinking God knows what. And I told them my social worker's name is Leslie Tahir, and I want the police to call her. Well, they got a hold of Leslie at home on a Saturday. Her little girl answered the phone. Now, I say little girl because now Jamila is, let's see, Kayla's 33. Jamila's 37 now. But she was 4 years old at the time when she answered the phone. And they asked for her mom. And she informed them that my mommy's in the shower. And they were like, well, would you please go let her know that this is the Sacramento County Police Department on the phone, and we'd like to talk to her. We're the police. We'd like to talk to your mommy. So she goes and gets her mom out the shower, and I'm assuming she says, Mommy, the police are on the phone or something like that. So Leslie comes to the phone. They tell Leslie everything that's happening. And she says to them, is Cosette near you? Can I talk to Cosette? And they said, yes. And so they said, your social worker wants to talk to you. They hand me the phone. She says, hi, Cosette. And I said, hi, Leslie. And I just let in. This woman treat me like this. And now I'm sick of this kind of stuff. And my foster mom is away. And I need something else. And she was like, well, Cosette, it's Saturday. I don't have anywhere I can place you on the weekend like this. I don't even have access to make phone calls or anything. And I said, well, I'm not going back to that house. And she was like, oh my goodness. She goes, okay, put the police back on the phone with me. So apparently she had informed the police that she was going to come and get me on a Saturday. So this is where it gets funny to me, because she pulls up in her car and her little girl hops out the back seat. The first time I'd ever seen her little girl. And Leslie gets out the car with a towel wrapped around her head. And you can tell she just got out the shower. And this was our very first meet and greet in person.
Oh, wow.
This was, oh my God, right? She's got this towel around her head. And she's like, hi, Cosette, I'm Leslie. And I'm like, hi, Leslie, I'm Cosette. And she was like, and it was so funny because when she was coming through the parking lot, oh, this is hilarious. She was reassuring everybody. She was, hi, I'm Leslie, the social worker. Everything is okay now. I'm the social worker, Leslie. I'm coming to get her. I mean, she was saying this to all the people in the parking lot as she's walking up to Lumberjack. And then she gets to Lumberjack. I'm a police officer. I'm Leslie, the social worker. And the most amazing thing is, since there was nowhere to place me on Saturday, she took me to her home.
Wow.
And she said, what's your favorite food? And I said, pizza. She said, great, we're going to order pizza. And the Disney cartoon, The Little Mermaid, had just came out. And so her daughter was 4, and my daughter was 2, almost 2. And they sat there on the couch and they watched The Little Mermaid. And I sat at the dining room table with Leslie, and I ranted, and I ranted, and I ranted, and I ranted. And it dawned on me after a while that she was keeping eye contact with me. And I stopped. I said, are you listening to me? She said, yes, I am. I couldn't believe that. Nobody had bothered to listen to me.
Wow.
And I told her, I said, nobody listens to me. She said, well, I'm listening to you, and I think you're very intelligent. So all of that to say the answer to that question, what counsel would I give? Listen to the youth.
Yeah.
Allow them to know that you trust their ideas, opinions, and assumptions. Allow them to know, again, that you see their gifts and talents. Let them know that you recognize their sense of humor and their wisdom when they're being serious. And go ahead and co-sign the idea with them that they have the right to own who they are.
Yeah.
And that this is not the end all, but the reset button in their life, and that you will be a positive role model to say to them, I see you and I hear you.
I think that's so powerful, and I would certainly echo that for sure. And I think from my perspective as someone who's worked in that industry for a long time in one form or another, I think one of the biggest things that I found so helpful was not treating them any different, if that makes sense. I've worked with kids that have come from broken homes. I've kids that have come from alcoholic homes, drug-induced homes, that were, coping with sexual identity and all that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it was a shock because I'd never been I'd never been, prone to that and revealed to that. And when you hear it and see it for the first time, it was like, "Ooh, hello." But it was always, you felt it inside, but it was really important that you didn't go, "Oh my goodness, that's just terrible." And for me, it was always remembering that the same people that you've known for so many years, you just now know a little bit more and a little bit deeper into their lives. And that was something that served me really, really well, with several of our kids that we worked with. It was never a case of, well, I know tonight you're going to a temporary foster home and tomorrow you're going elsewhere. I'm going to treat you different. It was a case of, guys, come on in. Let's all get on the Jesus story. Let's all get in on the food. Let's all get in on the games. And a lot of the time, we had so many waifs and strays come to our youth group because we were known throughout the entire town as the one where it was safe to ask questions. That one of the ones that was, Cosette, we had people that came to us from other local youth groups, and I said, and they told me they'd been kicked out of them. I said, why on earth have you been kicked out of these youth groups? And they honestly said to me, because we ask questions. And I'm like, well, that reveals so much to me. First of all, you're inquisitive, which is no sin. Second of all, it means the people that were supposed to be looking after you can't do it to save their life, or they don't know the answers. They get freaked out. And a lot of believers sometimes will do this. They don't have the answers, so they just throw people out. And I said, well, here's a position that you can actually ask, or here's a place that you can actually ask. And it's a safe place where I'm not going to say, well, that's a dumb question, because there are no dumb questions. If you've taken the time to actually ask that question, then it's obviously means something to you. And, for 6 years, I really helped break out of that mold. Now, unfortunately, after I left that particular church, they went back to the old ways because, again, it's the conditioning and back to their default settings. And, whereas it had been, talks that were actually relevant to what the kids were going through. Like, what does God think about, people, with gender identity issues and anxiety and depression? And even the kids, unfortunately, we lost the mother of one of our children. She unfortunately committed suicide. And, that was one of the topics that was raised by that child. What does God think about this? And then when I left, I heard it through the grapevine maybe 2 or 3 weeks later that they'd gone back to, well, this is what the Bible says. And this is what that. And there was just no conversation at all. And, it was... You can only do what you can do at the end of the day. And, I'll always take that with me. But we've got to jump to commercial break. But when we come back, we will be talking more with Cosette. And we've got more questions to follow. So if you've got questions for us today, fire them into that chat bar. And we will see you in a couple of minutes.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We've earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
It's that time of year again! A time of lights, trees, and presents galore. It's also a time filled with stress, worry, and frantic panic. in the search for that special gift. What do you buy the person who has everything? The answer, you buy them something that can't be found on the high street or in any shop, but only by special order. You buy them something made with love. Through the power of a paintbrush and the magic of some paint, I create paintings for people from all over the world and in all shapes and sizes. Portraits, pets, landscapes, seascapes, and so much more. Just like Santa, I too love to spread the gift of joy to people all over the world. Christmas can be an immensely stressful time of year. Will they like it? Won't they like it? Well, when you order with us, you're ordering something that your loved one is guaranteed to love. We take all the stress away for you. It is as simple as 1, 2, 3. Send an email with the picture you desire. Choose the size and frame of your choosing, and we will take care of the rest. Shipping is even on us. And if you're looking for something even more unique, why not come and visit our online shop where you can order my best-selling self-help book, which is packed with my artwork. Why not even order my CD and even prints and gift certificates and so much more awaits behind those doors. So what are you waiting for? Come and visit us and click on that link. We're looking forward to hearing from you and helping in any way that we can. And from all of us here, we wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. Okay, folks, and we are back. And if you are interested in ordering a very special custom portrait or ordering my best-selling book, The Battles We All Face, then just head to thejohnmorris.co.uk. You can check it out there. And also, I should say, guys and girls, if you're interested in getting your message out there, if you've got a business or an organization or something special that you want to get out there and you want to sponsor the show, you can. This show not only goes all over social media and all over the internet and around the world, it also goes into 50 million plus homes on the Roku TV network as well. And what better way is there to get your message out there? So get in touch with me at thejohnmorris.co.uk and we'll set up something really special for you. With that now said, folks, we're going to continue our interview and our talk with the awesome Cosette Leary. Cosette, welcome back, my dear.
Thank you so much. Glad to be back.
I'm glad. It is... It's really interesting, obviously, when we left up before the commercial break, we were talking about the advice with people that work in the foster system. And like we said, I think it's really important not to, treat people differently. Yes, everybody's unique and everybody is what they are. But at the end of the day, one thing that I found was, people in the foster system, people in that, in all sorts of different areas and all walks of life, they're already going through, so much struggle and so much strife. The last thing they need is to then be treated like an outcast, when they come into, homes and things. I think it's really, really important for sure. One of the other questions that came in, actually, Cosette, this one came in a number of times. Before you were taken away from from obviously your home with your mom and stepfather, obviously you experienced a lot of trauma there. One of the questions was, did you ever see them again after you were taken away?
Yes, I did.
What was the relationship like, or what is the relationship like?
There was no relationship.
Right.
There wasn't that. One day when I was at the orphanage, we lived in what they called cottages. Mm-hmm. And I lived in the Willows. And they had all these glass patio doors all around them for the front of the cottage. It was just right. Glass. And, so you could easily see out when you come out from the bedroom areas where our little dormitory rooms were. Uh-huh. And we come into the living room, you could just completely see all around the glass you could see out there. And one day I came out of my bedroom into the living room and I saw my mom and her husband walking across the lawn. The fear struck me so hard that I immediately went into convulsions.
Wow.
I felt my eyes roll back in my head. and I felt my whole body shaking, and I hit the floor. Um, I thought they had come to take me back.
Hmm.
It scared me so bad.
Of
So of course
course.
I had ambulance to the hospital, and they were told, they have to leave and whatnot. I don't even know what that was that happened to me.
Hmm.
I don't know medically. They didn't give me. I don't even know if they knew,
Hmm.
what had happened to me. That surge of fear like that could cause a human being to do that.
Hmm.
You
From
know.
what you just described, that's not surprising to me. And I just want to jump in here because I think it's important for people to know this. From a brain point of view, it's what we call the Great Reset. So you can have so much fear and so much panic put into your body in in one blow, as it were, that your brain literally shuts down. And that's oftentimes what happens when you have an anxiety attack or when you have a panic attack. Your brain is freaking out, and your brain's job is basically to protect your body. And when you
Mhm,
can't absorb
mhm.
anything else, any more negativity or anything, it will shut down. And by the sounds of it, that's what happened to you on that day. That literally so much fear came into your system, it was like your brain just went bang and passed out. That's yeah, and it's not surprising, from what you have described as well. Um, it's tragic that you had to go through that, for sure.
Wow, you're the first person that has explained that to me of what actually happened to me.
Many
So I,
people don't seem to know, or many people, miss the signs. You're not the only one that's happened to. We've done other shows and on other platforms and things where we've had similar conversations, and
wow.
it can happen with anxiety, it can happen with fear, it can happen with panic attacks. Social anxiety is one of the biggest ones, and that's why people collapse. More often than not, is because the brain can't get enough oxygen around the body because now fear is spreading all over the place and panic spreading, and it's causing you to breathe faster. You can't get enough oxygen into your system, and bang,
Yeah,
you pass out.
my God. All these years I've wondered what that was because they were saying, it wasn't a seizure, I wasn't
Mhm.
epileptic or
Yeah.
anything like. So they didn't know, no one could ever tell me what happened. I
Uh-huh.
did know that on the sight of them, that's what happened
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
So so yes, I did see them again, and that's how that went. And from that
Did you
point
ever
on,
find out why they came?
yes, my mom was trying to make an effort to
Right.
reconnect with me and keep her butt out of jail.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh dear.
Right. I mean, I'm like, really? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly the ideal, situation. I take it there was never any, correspondence or any communication after that.
was
Right.
when my daughter was 2 years old, my grandmother came to visit us in Sacramento, me and my daughter. And since my dad had already died, which was my grandmother's son, she had this idea that she was hoping that she could somehow put me and my mom back together. Huh. And I kind of was hoping maybe so too ish. So my grandma arranged it where on a weekend day, me, her, and my mom and my daughter, went out for a whole day together. And at first it was going really good. And I was like, oh my God, my mom's heart has changed. She's nice now, you know. Not so much.
Right.
By the time we got back to her house, from the moment she turned the key in the lock
Wow.
and walked into her living room, immediately her personality changed. I
That,
mean, like,
that's interesting.
she turned the key,
Hmm.
unlocked the door,
Yeah.
walked in the living room, and all of a sudden, the old her came back. And my grandma was in a total state of shock. She was saying to her, "Stop talking like that. Do you hear what you're
Uh-huh.
saying? Don't talk to Cosette like that." my mom just totally changed into some other, morphed back into that. And she started talking about how I ruined her life, her and her husband's life, and how they had to file bankruptcy to pay all the court fees. I mean, she was just going off. And I was like, I told my grandma, I said, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's leave. And my grandma was like, no, I don't want to go. I want to talk to your mom. I want to get this under control. And I was like, well, I'm not staying because this is terrible. I said, I don't think you should stay either. My grandma ended up staying and ended up regretting it. She told me the next day, oh my God, that she couldn't stand being in the house. She said she didn't sleep at all night.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and my mom had got a chance to see my daughter, so that was the way that went.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple years later, I had heard that my mom had gone completely blind.
Right.
And that she was in the hospital. And she was suffering. She had a triple bypass. And she also had stomach cancer.
Wow.
I had ran into one of the congregation members from our church, the religion I grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
and they had informed me of this, and they told me that she was in UCD Med Center, the same hospital that I got ambulanced to when the Caucasian police officer turned red and got me to the UC Davis Med Center. She was there. And my heart was conflicted.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for her pitifulness. And what I mean by pitifulness, I mean she had shriveled up into this existence.
Yeah.
And I knew there was a chance she could die. So by then I had a second daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Kayla was about 4 now. And then I had another little girl who at the time was about, I would say 8 months old or so. So I got my 2 daughters together and we got on the city bus and we went down to UC Davis Med Center. And I told them that I was her daughter and that I'd like to see her. And they took me to the room she was in. And I walked in the room and she said, "Who's there? Who's there?"
Wow.
I said, "It's me, Cosette." She said, "Cosette?" And I said, "Yeah, I heard you were sick. So I come to see you." And the most amazing thing happened. She said, "Who's the baby you're holding?" She said, "Who's the baby? It looks like you're holding a baby in your hand, your arm." I said, "You can see her?" I said, "You're blind." She goes, "Yeah, but I see like a shadow, like you're holding a little shadow, and I see like an arm is moving." I said, "This is my daughter." And I said, "Do you want to hold her?" And she said, "You let me hold your daughter?" And I said, "Yeah." And I handed my baby to her. And I remember she said to my baby, you got time for an old woman?"
It's amazing. So many things that are going through my head there. It speaks to me of the person that you are. And I think in a lot of ways it's nice. In a lot of ways, it's nice that final that final story, that encounter, was something at least happy, if nothing else.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me, knowing what I know of the mind, body, and soul. It doesn't surprise me that she ended up in that state, but it was wonderful in a lot of ways that she had that moment, before whatever happened, afterwards happened, it was wonderful that she had that moment with you, with your daughter, and
Yeah.
I guess in a lot of ways, you can part this world as friends, nothing else.
Yeah. I think I was very surprised that she could see her shadow,
Yeah,
because they told me that, she couldn't see anything. She was completely blind. But I felt that something divine had allowed her to see the shadow of my
definitely,
daughter, gave her a
definitely.
gift to see that. And
It's
so I
yeah,
let her hold her, because, but to hear her say to the baby, "You got time for an old woman," it just was,
yeah, almost like a healing of her soul.
I hope it was that for her. I
Yeah,
don't know, because we didn't talk anymore. I
yeah,
came to see her. I don't I just felt sorry for her, so I went to the hospital to see her, and she was able to see my baby shadow, and of course she was able to say hi to my oldest daughter, and
yeah.
she did say to them, "I'm your grandma."
Mhm.
And I don't think I stayed more than an hour. The next thing I ever heard of her was she had passed away.
Right,
So, at least she had that time.
definitely.
I don't know. I have no answers, you know. Um, I don't know how she felt after that or what. I know, like she said to my baby, you got time for an old woman. And that was really something, because
Yeah.
I had never heard her in my entire life speak from vulnerability.
Hmm.
But she had the when some friends ran into me years later and had informed me that she had died, because they hadn't seen me in a long time. And they told me that on her deathbed, she just kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." They said her husband kept asking her, "What are you sorry about? Why are you saying you're sorry?"
Mm.
And he said she never told him what she was sorry about. She just kept saying, "I'm sorry." They interpreted it that she was apologizing to me.
Yeah. Well, that's what I felt, heard, and saw there when you were describing that. Um,
Mm,
I think sometimes, the closer we get to the end of this life, the more we realize, sometimes the mistakes and sometimes the things that we should have done differently. And
yeah,
if anything, it means that she left this world in peace. But what one of the things that speaks to me so loudly is the person that you are after going through all that you went through. You
hmm,
know, to even give her the opportunity to see you again and your children. I mean, that's a really big thing. It really, really is. It's obviously the saga doesn't end there because one of the final questions that we had was after you ended up working in DC.
ah,
If I've got this correct, you probably know where I'm going with this. How did you end up homeless again after working in
woo, let's go.
the stage
Bring
and
it,
floor is
John.
yours?
Bring it, John. Inquiring minds want to know. Okay. Well, this is how it went. I feel like saying a disclaimer. The names and identities have been changed to protect the innocent. But I had graduated from university, so my time at university was done, and I wanted to come back to my state, Washington, and I had a mentor that I really looked up to that lived out here in Washington, who had offered to let me and my fiance stay within his home to get on our feet for a month or two for us to transition back to Washington State. Well, that didn't work out. We got here. we stayed at a friend of mine's apartment the first night we were here from Baltimore, Maryland. We took the train from Baltimore, Maryland out to Washington State. And we stayed the first night at a friend's, house, and the next morning got up to go meet my mentor with the idea that we were going out to his home. Unfortunately, when we met with my mentor informed us that there was no longer any room at the house for us. It shocked us. We had traveled over 3,000 miles. We had left our jobs at Johns Hopkins University. I had left the Hill. And all of a sudden we are homeless now.
My goodness.
In an instant.
Wow.
And I was utterly embarrassed because my fiance followed me out here from the East Coast.
Yeah.
And that began a saga that I was never prepared for.
No, definitely.
And so that same exact day when we had been given the news, we didn't know what we were going to do. So we went back to my friend's apartment, told her what had taken place. And we knew we couldn't stay there long because she was on a lease and they have rules and regulations to visitors and stuff like that. And we didn't know what we were going to do. So she let us stay as long as we could for 13 more days. And then we start trying to find the shelters to get into. But besides the fact that there was enormous waiting list, there was a problem with the intake process.
Right.
And that was, I had a degree.
Okay.
Therefore, they saw that I had resources.
Oh, right.
And that, with the demographic that they serve, me having my degree in public administration, they could not justify taking a bed from someone else who doesn't have that kind of
course
education to be able to go out and get a so-called $42,000 to $56,000 a year job. Problem is, nobody would hire me. There was another thing that had happened that I was not prepared for in university. They didn't teach me was that I could be considered a threat. No one ever talked about nothing like that because who thinks about anything like that to begin with?
Of course.
And the way that I became a threat, which I didn't know, and I heard through the grapevine, friends and former colleagues would talk to me because people were starting to really feel sorry for me because I would go for all these job interviews at different agencies and organizations, and I would never get hired, even though I was the ideal candidate to work with low-income population here. I had gone from being on welfare. I had grew up in orphanages, group homes, foster homes, been a teen mom and everything, and now I graduated summa cum laude from my university. I had my degree in public administration. I am an alumna of Brookings Institution think tank. I had served in a senatorial office as an intern staff member, a congressional office on Capitol Hill and Rayburn Building in D.C. Who better to talk to low-income people about hopes and goals?
Definitely.
But that was the problem. I came with a new school of thought, and I had done something that they had never seen before. They had never seen a woman from welfare go all the way up to the pinnacle of our country, get educated, do all these things. And so the problem became the executive directors of the agencies and organizations were afraid that if I was hired in as an eligibility specialist, as an employment specialist, as a self-sufficiency specialist, that whatever I had done in my life, the trajectory that I had that had given me all of this, I would have their job within 6 months to a year. So no one wanted to let me in. But what that left me was homeless. it left me homeless. And I wasn't aware that, I never knew about that dynamic. No one talks about stuff like that.
Right.
And I just I thought I was going to come home to the cheerleading section.
Yeah.
You know, low income woman makes good from our town. No, I had done what none of their programs could teach any of their clients. I had out-educated myself beyond them. I had sat down with diplomats and distinguished people and ambassadors and all these things in my life. So I was perceived as someone who knew how to get out of poverty and thrive and excel. And so therefore, if I got hired, I would be coming in with my ideas and maybe start looking like a better person to run this whole ship, you know, and steer this ship through this big old ocean of poverty. And they were saying, hell no.
It was almost like the political game that they were playing. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't talked about this, but I find it really interesting because when I came back from the United States in 2011, 2012, whenever it was, I went over there, and again, very similar to what you've described, very different situation. But I was given the hero send-off. It was like, oh, let's pray for John. He's going to America. He's taking his business there. He may go and live over there. Brilliant, wonderful. Halfway through, in fact, 3/4 of the way through my tour, I was in Maryland. We just finished in Washington, D.C., actually.
Oh, wow.
I'd been speaking in Stuyvesant Church, which was a Lutheran church. And then we went on to Washington, D.C., spent the day there, photo shoots and other bits and pieces. Because, of course, you got to do that stuff in 105-degree heat.
Of course you do.
Oh, my goodness. It was brutal. And
humidity.
The photos are just look, so miserable because it's just like it's so hot. It was insane. But anyway, we get back and I'm sitting in the bedroom and I get a message from my then flatmate. Now I've been sharing a house, and we've been cutting rent and whatnot. But he had actually bought the house, and while I was over there in a very cowardly move from my perspective, he basically said, "I'm terminating your lease right here while you're in the United States. I'm giving you your 3 weeks notice." Now, I still had 3 weeks to go on my tour. So, when you return back, to Scotland, you'll be relocated basically. What do you want me to do? I'm like, dude, I'm in the States. What do you want me to do? What the heck do you do with this? So there was a lot of talk. Do we stay, in the United States, get a job out there? All that kind of stuff. And because I was a youth minister at the time, I was like, no, the right thing to do is to, and again, that was the conditioning that I had at the time, was to go back to Scotland and to deal with this mess. Basically, the guy had relocated my stuff. He'd give me two options. One was to stay in a house with two other women and to house share with them, which is fair enough. The house was really nice, but the church wouldn't have approved of it. And the second one was to stay in this bedsit, which I didn't know this at the time, but it was actually in one of the worst, most violent and, prostitute, drug-filled parts of Ayr, which is the town where we were living at the time, on the west coast of Scotland. And that's the one, without knowing what I'd signed up for, that he put me in. So I fly 22 hours. I fly all the way back from Maryland, United States, London, back up to Edinburgh. It takes 22 hours. They lose the luggage. They do all sorts of crazy stuff. And I went down to see the apartment, and I was sharing with two other people. One that liked parties, one that wanted to mate like rabbits in season. And I'm thinking, for a professional at 24, 25 years old that is desperately needing at that point stability, this is not the place for me to be. And again, guys, I've talked about this on different interviews, very different person at that point. I don't think I've ever dropped so many F-bombs to the guy's face in my entire life. In one sentence, how many F-bombs could you actually fit into the sentence? And, that literally, and that's how I know that level of fear, and I know we're running out of time, but that level of fear can cause some severe effects. I couldn't read properly for about 18 months. It affected my sight and my vision so much. The stress that was there was just unbelievable. And like you think, oh, you're going to get help. You're going to be around the people that love you and care about you. The church backed off completely.
Oh
And their
my
exact
gosh.
response in writing was, our responsibility is to make sure you've got a place to stay. It doesn't matter what that place looks like. And I was just like, so you are literally leaving. There was a prostitute and a family in the apartment below. There were drug addicts to the room next there. The police would frequently
Oh
be
my
around.
goodness.
It was just horrific. And I met my wife in,
Uh,
through that time. And they always say, meet your wife or your husband before you make your money, because that way they're going to stay with you and they're not with you just for the money. But
that's
it was
right.
one of the hardest and most difficult things that I've ever had to go through. And again, divine things that had happened about 6 months later. I did end up leaving there, but it had a long-term effect on me. And about, I don't know, a couple of months in, I was training in my bedroom, weightlifting, and I was watching something on YouTube, and it was, Jesus. I think it was like Conversations with God or something like that. And it was just that still small voice that said, "You're gonna make it. You're gonna be okay." And I just knew from that point onwards that I was going to get out of the situation. So I understand, because
Mhm.
from the description that you said, obviously very, very different, but very similar at the same time.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have, had, a little bit of time on the streets. I know what that's like, but I also know what it's like to have to rebuild your life completely.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. It's scary.
No.
Is there anything that you want to say before we wrap up the show? I know we could just go on for hours. I know we
Yes, we could, which is why I'm writing an autobiography, because to just sit down with me and talk, it would take hours, literally, because we're talking about a lifetime.
Yeah.
But yes, one of the things that I always like to impart when I'm getting ready to exit from a wonderful session or interview is to always believe in yourself. I know that sounds so simple, but it's easier said than done. I know through my own life experiences thus so far to date that there are, or were, and sometimes still are, two of the hardest things: to believe in myself and to love myself. But those are two of the most valuable things. It takes time, but I would love to suggest to anyone that is a dreamer,
Mhm.
that feels like they've got ideas and that they have passion and that they have a purpose that's bigger than whatever they're doing right now, to never give up on that.
Yeah.
Do not stop. Oh my goodness. Yes, we've talked about me living in orphanages and group homes and foster homes and teen parenting and all of that. We've talked about what my father was to me, what my grandmother was to me, and still is still in my heart. But in all of the things, there was something in my heart that would not allow me to give up, no matter what
Yeah.
society said about me, no matter what I told myself when I used to say I was nobody's child.
Mhm.
There was a passion that I knew I wanted to be someone who was effective at promoting change and empowering people to love who they are
Yeah.
and to own the power in their life stories, and do not compromise for nobody. Don't compromise your story for nobody. Don't compromise your life for nobody. Don't compromise nothing about you for
Yeah.
nobody. Because can't nobody tell you your own story. What? You've lived your own story. They can't tell you. And if they think they can, walk away from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, something that I want to say, in parting words: never give up. I have gone on from all that we've talked about in these two sessions to yes, I am an author. I am a motivational transformational speaker. I am a professional women's empowerment coach, and I'm powerful at it, let me tell you, baby. And I'm a magazine columnist writer. And yes, I am a very confident woman. And I own every bit of my story. And even if my story makes some people feel uncomfortable, then that's the opening for the conversation. So please don't give up on yourself. Understand that it'll take a lot of work. But like I always tell people, be the support system you always wanted.
Definitely. I think that's a fantastic place to end. And Cosette, I want to thank you so much for being my special guest on this week and last week's show.
Thank you.
I have enjoyed it thoroughly. And folks, if what we've said, struck a chord with you, then do get in touch with us. Because, again, we want you to know that you're not alone in all of this. 8.6 billion people, however many billions of people that have been before you and that will come after you, I guarantee you, there have been more than a handful that have gone through what you are going through. And, if nothing else, take comfort in that. You are not alone in this. And there are people out there that do love you and that do care about you. So from both Cosette and myself, I want to thank you so much for watching, folks. Until next time, this has been the Mind, Body and Soul Show, where we help you find balance in the craziness of day-to-day life. And we'll see you same place, same time next time. Take care.